Hi, welcome to Off Script. I'm Zach Lewis.
And I'm Dr. Draper.
Today on the show, we're taking a look at Black Adam, the movie that changed cinema. We're excited to talk about. The whole show is dedicated to Black Adam, actually. A lot to say on
Only
it.
because of
so
lack
we'll
of selection, not because it's the biggest thing out there.
Well, you know, 6 in one hand, half dozen in the other, Andy. We're also going to talk about some exciting news over at DC Films. Just broke just before the podcast about who is heading DC Films after Walter Hamada has left. It's a really interesting combo. I'm excited to talk about it in the Death of the Cinema segment at the end of the show. Before we get to all that, we need to talk about the news. Our first story this week is already on screen if you watch us on Facebook Live. Peeling back Glass Onion, Netflix's Knives Out theater plan has sparked some box office controversy. I wasn't actually wise to this until we started the show. Andy found this story earlier this week. Andy, what's going on with Glass Onion?
So Glass Onion, the sequel to Rian Johnson's Knives Out, is going to be in theaters very briefly over the Thanksgiving weekend. In a first, Netflix struck a deal with all the major cinema chains, Cinemark, Regal, and AMC to show a few screenings over the holidays. And the theaters were really excited about this, and we're hoping this might lead to some more deals like this or some longer windows, because this is just going to be like maybe 5 days. And then Netflix came out and said, no, this is strictly for our subscribers. This is for our streaming service. This is kind of going to be a one-off, and that's unfortunate, but who knows? They may do it again in the future.
I can't stand this news. As somebody who'd really like to go see the sequel to Knives Out in a theater, the fact that it's running in like 600 theaters nationwide for like a week, maybe some of them will probably be 5 or 6 days, sucks. Like, we're in a big city and the odds of us catching it here are slim, and I don't know if that's the best way to watch Rian Johnson's exciting new feature. I would imagine it is. Knives Out did great last year or a couple years ago when it came out. The numbers are in here somewhere. $311.6 million globally. I mean, come on. And I know Netflix shelled out a bunch of money for Glass Onion and the third film in this threequel. But like, personally, that's where I'd really like to watch it. I think Knives Out has potential, or at least the first film definitely had potential at awards. I think Glass Onion does too. That's why they're running it in theaters, so it can be eligible for things like the Oscars. It is silly to me that despite how hard up they are for subscribers, which is real hard up in Netflix's case, by the way, they need people subbing. They need people subbing bad. I think it's silly that they want to be eligible for all the awards that like classic cinema entails, so they can get the marketing out of it. But they don't want people to have a choice of where they can see some of their bigger, more exciting, potentially award-winning features. Like, that's silly. What do you think, Andy?
Yes, it's definitely frustrating, but a lot of films do this. They run for literally 2 weeks in late December between Christmas and New Year's in 3 theaters just so they can be eligible for awards. So it's not unheard of. Netflix is still chasing those big Oscars. They lost Best Picture last year to Apple TV's Coda somehow. Netflix has been trying to get that Best Picture Oscar for years, and Apple TV Plus did it like their first or second go. But they really want to basically say, we are bold cinema, we are top tier cinema, and get a Best Picture award or some other awards, and it just hasn't really happened. So they're going hard for it, but yeah, they are not about the theatrical experience. They're about you subscribing to their channel.
For what it's worth, Netflix did spend $500 million, $469 million for Glass Onion and its follow-up, which means Glass Onion has already cost Netflix $250 million. That's not nothing to scoff at, right? That is a big number, a little less technically, but I get it. Like, they don't want to give money to theaters, and the way theaters have acted towards Netflix, I don't blame them. They've kind of had a long-standing feud that only gets worse through the pandemic over the last couple of years. But like, I don't know. I don't think this is the way to do it. Like, I know they want to make money. I know they want to focus, and it's expensive. It's the other thing. It's expensive to market in theaters, right? It's expensive to come out during the holiday season, Thanksgiving, around then is when this is coming out, and say, hey, this is also going to be competing with everything else. You got to have marquees made up. You got to have posters. You're going to want to run ads to promote that. Like, they really are just trying to do the most low impact presentation of this film possible in theaters so they can make the most money on their platform where they make the rules. And I respect the hustle. I do. But as one of those few people who would much rather watch it in theaters, like it makes it tough. Makes it tough for the cinema heads out there. And that's that. Our next story, Damon Lindelof is getting in the Star Wars business, which is weird. Acclaimed television writer of series such as Lost, The Leftovers on HBO, and Watchmen on HBO. Damon Lindelof has been talking to Disney about doing some Star Wars work. Andy, what's this about?
So this just broke yesterday. We know that there have been some secret Star Wars projects in the works since kind of the end of 2019's Rise of Skywalker. A lot of projects have been announced, kind of started, and canceled in the Star Wars universe. So you never really know. But apparently this is one of the projects that is going off the ground. It's going to be written by not just Damon Lindelof. There's going to a group of writers, but they're very talented things. And if you're not familiar with his work, he's best known for Lost, The Leftovers, Watchmen. He also wrote one of the Star Trek movies, Prometheus, which I really like. Some people think that that's a hit against him, but
Prometheus was good.
Yeah. Prometheus has got some good things. Also, this is going to be directed by Miss Marvel director Charmin Obaid-Chinoy, who directed 2 episodes of Miss Marvel. I haven't watched that show, but I've heard it's pretty good. So it's an interesting approach, and it looks like they're looking to move past the Skywalker saga. Well, at least it's going to take place after Rise of Skywalker. We might see some characters from the newer films, but it looks like they're really trying to move the torch forward. This is going to be one film, not a trilogy, not a franchise, not a series. They're just going to do a one-off and see how it goes. I think I'm sure they want to do more, but they've learned from, we had one Star Wars film every year for like 4 or 5 years, and they started to lose money, and it was a little bit too much too soon. So they're really taking a careful approach, and looks like this will be coming December 2025 at the earliest.
So, listen, for the property, for the creative work that is Star Wars, I think bringing somebody like Damon Lindelof on is a very smart move. Like, the guy's really clever. He's got a lot of work in the space. He writes some really good stuff. And I overall, I think that's a good thing. I do. For the company that makes Star Wars, I don't. Disney, I don't think much of this. They've got so many projects up in the air, and they've been moving around stuff. They've announced things and then written them off. I saw an article just the other day saying Rian Johnson is still interested in making that Star Wars threequel that they had already announced that he was going to make. But currently it's up in the air due to scheduling, which to me usually is Hollywood's way of saying it's probably not going to happen. Patty Jenkins, director of Wonder Woman, is supposed to be making a Star Wars movie. Taika Waititi was supposed to have a Star Wars movie in theaters next December. Like, let's just say the December after, right? 2023, not this year. And now that's been pushed back. And it's like nothing seems to be rising to the top with Disney and Star Wars here. Like, Andy's right. Bob Chapek, current CEO, said that in regards to their films, they did a little too much too fast. That's what he said. And they needed to back off. Now they're having a lot of success in the streaming space. And I think for Damon Lindelof, who obviously has had a lot of success in the streaming space, maybe that would be a good spot for him. And I think he can write a fine movie too. But I'm frustrated with the moves of the company.
Well, so many things get announced that never see even pre-production. Like you were saying, there's supposed to be this like Rogue Squadron movie, this Rangers of the Republic. Dan and what's the Game of Thrones showrunners were supposed to get. They got fired off their movie, but that's right. I forgot about them. Yeah, they were supposed to do a set of movies. Again, Rian Johnson. So a ton has been announced. There are 3 projects that seem to have more progress. This is going to be the third one. This is the newest one, the Damon Lindelof. Taika Waititi has been working on a Star Wars movie. Who knows when that's happening? The other one is Michael Waldron, who wrote. He was a writer on Loki season 1, and he has a lot of writing credits. He's also doing a Star Wars movie. So we know there's at least 3. I'm a little unsure about this Taika Waititi one, but this is the most recent one. It looks like they're aiming for 2025 and 2027 to possibly get a Star Wars movie out. So they're having some time. They're dying down. They're, I think, hopefully regrouping their film strategy.
Yeah. Like I said, I like the news. I don't like a company who seems to be continually stumbling into this trap.
Get
Like,
the
it's not
Warner
a good
Brothers.
move when you announce something and then just quietly never do it. Like, that gets people excited for pie in the sky ideas that aren't actually real. And it seems to happen a lot with this franchise. If the problem before was that you were making too much Star Wars too fast, how is having 8 Star Wars films all up in the air any different from being too much? The only difference is you're not releasing them.
I feel like if we ever see if one ever sees the light of day, it'll be a miracle at this point.
Yeah, like they're just constantly in flux. Yeah, the Game of Thrones guys were supposed to have one. I totally forgot about them. Patty Jenkins was supposed to have one, and then Wonder Woman 1984 came out and did not do great, and people were like, well, I don't know now, she's busy, and it's like, what are we doing? Like, you guys need to go for it. I know Disney again is having a lot of success with Star Wars on Disney Plus. Maybe that's a place where they can control it a little better, right? They can tamper expectations, but currently I'm disappointed where it's at. Hopefully, this is a step in the right direction. I think. Any other thoughts on this one?
I'm excited by the writing announcement. I mean, Damon Lindelof has done really incredible work, and I've listened to a couple of podcasts, and just the way he approaches writing, character, narrative, theme, it's just so much more complex than anything that we've gotten since The Last Jedi.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Like, I think he's somebody who manages to step further into the idea of like what character can be. James Cameron, director of Avatar 2, The Way of Water, was just saying earlier today, I was reading the Hollywood Reporter, I think, that Marvel and DC are not fantastic at writing characters who like have real depth. He said a lot of their characters are like college characters. They're just like, kind of goofy, one note, like not very deep individuals. And Lindelof is somebody who very much looks past that, like who sees that as a bigger thing. Taika Waititi, even to a point, can be that as well. Like he reimagined Thor in kind of a different space, and Thor Ragnarok elevated that character to a new place. Like I said, I think they're making good moves. I just hope like it's all in service of like a plan, and I'm not sure if it is. But the House of Mouse will continue to mouse, I suppose. Our last story before we get to Black Adam, from the box office, Black Adam blazes with a $67 million opening, and rom-com Ticket to Paradise flies to $16.3 million. I can't say if I'm surprised by this or not. Andy, how do you feel?
I'm a little bit the same way. If it had met expectations, that would feel normal, and exceeding expectations also is not surprising. This was tracking for a $60 million opening, so we beat that. This is The Rock's biggest solo opening film, ahead of Hobbs and Shaw at 60 million. He's opened bigger, but that's usually in a kind of an ensemble film. So that the man still got it. Some other notables: the rom-com Ticket to Paradise, which I think is just releasing this week, that stars Julia Roberts and George Clooney, is that came in number 2. That's been done about $100 million in business. Number 3 is Smile, the horror movie, which we didn't review on the show, but is doing gangbusters. It's at about 160 million globally on a $17 million budget.
We probably need to watch that movie.
Yeah, it's a certified hit.
I've heard people say it's like the scariest thing they've ever seen, and I'm like, that has to be fluff. Like, there's no way. Like, I don't.
I've heard
it's
got a lot of good jump scares. What I've heard.
Yeah, sure. Like, who doesn't? YouTube's got a lot of good jump scares. Anyway, I shouldn't write off Smile. Clearly, it's doing well. We should probably watch this some more for the show. Regarding Black Adam and Ticket to Paradise, I'm a little surprised Black Adam didn't do better. I think anybody keeping an eye on those critic scores when they were initially dropped were pleasantly surprised that Black Adam premiered with like a 45 on Rotten. Like, it did really poorly opening. This did not get a lot of critical praise. Ticket to Paradise, meanwhile, let me finish that point. I'm surprised because I thought Black Adam was just going to be a huge hit regardless. I think I said on this show it was going to make $800 million total. I'm not so sure. I'm thinking
probably not going to hit around
400, there. 500. Yeah, maybe. But it's neither here nor there. The Rock clearly still has it, which is bananas, because the man's incredibly like, he's kind of got one gimmick, right? He's kind of a big dude with a bit of charisma. That's it. And like, it's amazing that he's managed to get this far in this like
Well,
in this place in cinema on that thing.
well, and I feel like he's actually lost some charisma in some of his like he's actually his character is actually getting more and more dumbed down for some reason in a lot of movies because I mean he can be super charming.
Listen, yeah.
But yeah, it is some movies, particularly something like this, he's kind of dumbed down a little bit.
For what it's worth, and we'll talk about this in the Black Adam review in a minute. Like Black Adam is fundamentally like he has the Terminator thing going on, where like he doesn't talk a lot and he's pretty like angry all the time. And they worked it out the same way they did with Arnold Schwarzenegger back in the 90s, even the 80s. They were like, you look great and you're big and imposing. We're just going to lean on that and we're going to limit the number of lines we give you, and we'll just that'll be it. It's a real physical performance, and like it totally works. Like it works for Dwayne Johnson. Great. Like it works for John Cena and Peacemaker. He's got a bit more charisma, but he's a big guy. I say all of that about Dwayne Johnson to echo into Ticket to Paradise making $16.3 million. If you could wind the clock back like 10, 15 years, a rom-com starring George Clooney and Julia Roberts would have made $100 million opening weekend. It is bananas to me that this movie is like down here, and it really shows like just where rom-coms are at right now. Like people just do not turn out for them anymore like they used to. It's crazy.
Yeah, but it is doing well globally. Like I said, it's made 100 million globally, and it's been out a while overseas. I don't know why they waited so long to put it out here, but it's doing okay. I think it was probably made a little bit on the cheap, but yes, Black Adam isn't doing quite as well as they had hoped because it was expensive. It was a $200 million movie, so it's got to do quite a bit. It's got to do 400 or 500 million to turn a profit.
Well, with that, we should probably move into talking about the titular Black Adam. Andy's agreed to take the summer on this one. Andy, thank you. It's a bit of a challenge this week, so I appreciate you taking the bullet for me. Please take it away.
Black Adam. So this is the latest DC superhero film that doesn't really relate to a lot of anything we've seen before. If you're not familiar with Black Adam, he's very similar to the character Shazam that we met a couple of years ago, played by Zachary Levi. He has the powers of the wizard Shazam. He says Shazam. He's endowed with super strength, flight, lightning, all that. The difference in characters, Black Adam is kind of an ancient person from the ancient city of Kahndaq. In this, the plot is convoluted and very complicated. It's a bit like a Fast and Furious movie where the plot doesn't really matter, but it's actually really complicated if you sit and think about it. So I'm not going to get into the weeds too much. But there is a mother-son duo who go looking for an item, a relic in these caves in Kahndaq, and they end up releasing Black Adam, Dwayne Johnson's character. He kind of goes nuts. He kills everyone. There's mercenaries. There's bad guys called Intergang who kind of run the city. He just kind of demolishes everyone. He gets a little out of control, and this gets the attention of Suicide Squad's Amanda Waller, who calls in the Justice Society of America to come and subdue him. That group is made up of Dr. Fate, played by Pierce Brosnan, Hawkman, played by Aldous Hodge, and then we also have Cyclone and Atom Smasher. So these four characters, which are brand new to us, we haven't met before, go to subdue Black Adam, take him prisoner, and maybe also get us some help along the way. There's a ton going on. That's as simple as I want to keep it. But this movie is mostly about the action sequences. There's a ton of action. The plot is loosely strung together. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Doesn't have to. It's about spectacle. Some of it works, some of it doesn't. But we're going to get into that. So, Zach, what do you think?
So I think I'm surprisingly like lukewarm on this movie. Lukewarm to like soft rolling boil. Like I didn't dislike it, but like it's got problems. And I'm excited to talk about it here. I'm glad we have a little bit more time to kind of get into it because it's a complicated movie. And I think really its biggest problem is it kind of just has too much going on. It tries to tackle a few too many things. Too many motivations, couple too many characters, and it's a little long at 2 hours 4 minutes in my humble opinion. But otherwise, what do you think?
I think I overall liked it as a comic book fan. Like this is totally like if and I mean like not you watch superhero movies, like you read comics because there's a lot of little tiny things that you'll get and you'll appreciate and you'll kind of understand a little bit better. Um so it's okay, but like I said, it's like enjoying a Fast and Furious movie. You're not there for the characters, you're not there for the plot. You're there to see stuff blow up. You're just there to see cars crash, and in this case, it's superheroes clash. Um, there's a lot of things that don't work. It's like I said, the plot's everywhere. There's some really annoying characters. The Justice Society is interesting, and I would kind of wish they had been introduced in a different movie or something because they don't we need more of them. They're pretty interesting characters. Black Adam's probably the least interesting character in this movie, in his own movie. Dr. Fate, played by Pierce Brosnan, who's a little bit like Doctor Strange, is probably the best character, as is Hawkman, as well. You were talking about complicated plot, so the Black Adam has this whole backstory, ancient betrayal, tragedy. The movie tries to do that, and then also try to set up plot points in the present, which are really complicated. But yeah, there's a ton going on. Zach, take this away from me.
No. You're absolutely right. Interestingly, Andy's right. If the Justice Society wasn't in this movie, if all of those characters weren't there, this isn't a 90-minute feature. Like they are required to fill this out to be like a more rounded picture. Because Black Adam is unfortunately a pretty thin comic book character. Like he doesn't have that much going on. He got powers in ancient times, and now he's in present times. Like
Well,
that's kind of the gag. Like
the
you know,
villain as well. Like
right,
he doesn't have a lot going on.
Yes, and every superhero has to go about getting their powers, right? Peter Parker has to get bit by a spider, or Hawkman has to get bit by a hawk, or whatever happened to him. But unfortunately, like the Justice Society is surprisingly well done in this movie, and they almost don't get enough time. DC's done this before. DC did this already. We've already had a movie where we had a big protagonist character, and they kind of introduce a team behind them. It's Birds of Prey or The Fabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn. If they just called that movie Harley Quinn and rolled it out exactly as it was, people would say the same thing. They'd be like, it was good, but like, boy, that whole Birds of Prey thing was like a third of the movie, you know? Like, and it's a weird way to kind of segue characters in. I don't know if it's a strategy. I'm not sure. But I almost wish we'd add more. Like, I would have just probably had preferred a Justice Society movie because they're all really interesting.
Yeah.
Anyway.
For those of you who don't know, Dr. Fate is well, again, he's kind of a wizard. He's kind of magical. I think he just kind of sees the future as well. He doesn't really do much.
His powers are described as near godlike in the film.
Yeah, but traditionally he's just kind of he's like the Spectre or something. He just kind of floats around and tells people about what to do or their fate. Like that's
yes.
But they give him a lot of action in this scene. But he's played brilliantly by Pierce Brosnan. He is kind of the Obi-Wan Kenobi, older teacher figure guiding everyone else.
He reminds me of like Doctor Strange a little, but like an older, more weary, wiser, grayer Doctor Strange, right? Like has seen it all, man. Dr. Fate's been there, done that. Yeah. Almost like Professor X kind of
right. And Hawkman, also played by Aldous Hodge, he's a little bit more rearing to go and less he just wants to kind of get in a fight, that kind of thing. And so they kind of make a good duo. And then Cyclone, played by Quintessa Maxwell, and Adam Smasher, played by Noah Centineo. They're like younger members of this thing, and they're
hired them from Netflix.
Yeah, their powers are
done a couple series. Yeah,
their powers are exactly as described. Cyclone.
Yes.
Cyclone just spends her time like floating upside down, and then somehow her hair is still amazing. Adam Smasher just grows big, and they're kind of teenagers, so it's a kind of cute setup, but way more interesting. Like Black Adam is he's just The Rock. He doesn't have a ton of character. He, he's supposed to be like an ancient Egyptian. Yeah, he makes no attempt to like use an accent or anything like that. He talks in modern speak, so it's just,
yes,
he's just The Rock being The Rock.
Right. We talked about this way early, like in the ads for Black Adam. the Rock doesn't look like anything. Well, I shouldn't say the Rock, Dwayne Johnson, right? He doesn't look like anything other than Dwayne Johnson. Like Aldous Hodge has this like really really goofy Hawkman outfit that he so flexes. Oh my god, he gets past it. Like any scene where he's not wearing it, he's really good. Like he's funny and he's serious and he kind of plays this like just about to fly off the handle character who is always an inch away from wanting to beat somebody up, but ultimately like is trying to work inside justice. Dr. Fate is this like weary older hero who's done a lot and has good relationships with people, but has these visions that kind of freak him out. And he's got a really cool outfit with this really rad helmet. He can fly and has these sick powers. And our two younger characters in the Justice Society, Adam Smasher is basically like Deadpool, but with Ant-Man powers. Like he's got the same white eyes and looks very similar, and he can grow up and small down. And he's kind of funny, but not really. And Cyclone is a little like Domino in Deadpool, right? She's kind of this like character that's stuck in there. He's got kind of a cool power, but not that important. The four of them have like unique silhouettes and unique outfits, and they're their own characters. And when they fight, they have their own powers and they combine powers. And like one character will shoot a laser and another one they'll bounce into a thing. Like it's like when the Avengers fight in the first Avengers movie. Like you get really good chemistry, good comic book stuff, good colors. Just unlike Birds of Prey, this is a problem in Birds of Prey because a lot of those girls start to kind of feel the same in your memory. Like Justice Society very much stands on their own. They're very unique. Unfortunately, all of them, Black Adam is kind of flat. Yeah, like he's a big burly guy, but you're right. Like he's just Dwayne Johnson doing the Dwayne Johnson thing. But they were, I said earlier, they did kind of the Terminator approach. They don't give him that many lines. They make him this just like insanely tough guy. And for what it's worth, when he does get into the powers, he does have some sick moves. Like there are some really cool scenes where he just absolutely crushes dudes.
Yeah, like I said, there's a ton of action. Some of it is better than the others. There's a big battle between Black Adam and the Justice Society about halfway through the film. That's a really good one, but there's way too much action in general, which it seems funny to say that, but that's what I meant. It felt like a Fast and Furious movie. Like it's at like 11 the whole time. Like it opens with an action scene. The action scene leads to another action scene. It's just like kind of nonstop. And the thing is, it's like 110% CGI, which it doesn't really help. Like this whole thing is shot on green screens, on built sets. Like none of it looks like they went anywhere to shoot it, and it just makes it more and more cartoonish.
Yes. Also worth mentioning, the action is like brutal. I cannot believe the number of people who die in this movie. Oh my god, like just ridiculous. And I know that's part of the whole appeal of Black Adam. Like he's not really a hero; he kills people. But like, good God, like how did this get to be their team rating? There's people who lit on fire and burned to death. There's people who are shot in the face.
It's
Like
PG-13 death, though.
Ridiculous. Like it's okay. But that's besides the point. It is meant to be a bit elevated, right? A step above. And for what it's worth, Black Adam does break out and do it that way. But as far as like our sets go, what's the name of this town? Kondar? Is that
Kondak?
Kondak, right? Yes, it's like in kind of arbitrary Egypt area. Like they don't really get specific with where it's at because this movie's got to run globally, right? They're going to run this in China and Russia and anywhere else they can make money. And it's fine. If anything, I did like that the film is a bit of a bottle. You don't leave there much, and I think that kind of makes the story feel more grounded. It's always a little goofy whenever your characters hop in the Quinjet and they're like, let's fly to Morocco in 2 minutes, like one scene change and the title card comes across the screen, Morocco, right? Like who cares? Like it's fine. So I like that everything felt local. That felt good. And that gives us some structure for Black Adam's kind of internal struggle with this idea that he has a history and a past with this place. And now we're in the future. Also sets up some potential for social commentary, which we'll get into in a second. Yeah. But the setting that's there is unfortunately super fake. And like, man, the more we see these movies, the worse it gets. Like all of these studios are DC and Marvel now are really just leaning into like, just shoot on green screen. We'll figure it out later.
Yeah. It's not like, The Dark Knight where they're shooting in Chicago to turn it into Gotham City. It all feels like, I mean, they're clearly all on sets, and it's funny because Christian Bale said something about that he was in Thor: Love and Thunder, and he would just be lost and confused half the time because they'll be like, "Oh, you're on screen 7," and they're like, he's like, "What is that? Where is
What does that
that?
mean?
What is
Yeah.
what yeah, it's really confusing. It just really takes you out of it.
Yeah, it does. But Black Adam's got a history, and I think that's worth talking about.
Yeah, he's this ancient Egyptian person. Through tragedy and happenstance, he becomes the champion of Shazam, and but kind of gets corrupted. That's his whole thing. He was the chosen one, but they chose poorly, and he turned out not to be the kind of person that should have these kind of powers. It's really complicated though, because then there's a lot going on there and a lot of exposition, and then they're trying to tie it into the future as well when he kind of comes back after 3,000, 5,000 years.
Yeah, I was curious to see how many people would pick up on the Shazam connection, because
I feel like that's going to confuse people.
I think it's going to confuse people. Yeah, because in standing on its own, it didn't want to lean on Shazam, so it doesn't like show any flashbacks from Shazam. But you definitely get a couple characters from Shazam, and the word the Black Adam uses to go up and down is Shazam, and his logo is the same as Shazam. So it's like, I think people are going to be like, what's the connection? For those that don't know, Andy and I get it, right? Nerds who listen to this podcast, y'all get it probably, but the rest of us,
yeah, they both got the lightning bolt on the front. That helps,
right? And that might be a lot. Additionally, like it's larger tyings to the DC cinematic universe as it currently exists. There are some other characters who appear. I think that stuff is good. Like I think that helps kind of grow the universe as it is. But it also like has to walk this fine line that a lot of these movies end up in, where you don't want to be too core to the property because people will feel like they have to watch Black Adam to know what's going to happen next. But you don't want to be too loose or it's too disassociated. Ultimately, it lands in there kind of fine, but it's also just kind of like, passable. You're not missing any like vital DC
it's
film information here. Like Black Adam will just show up in another DC movie at some point, most likely, and then he'll be doing something,
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It doesn't make an effort to tie into the rest of the DC universe. We don't even know what the DC universe is, especially,
no, we don't.
especially with some big changes today that we'll talk about in a second. I do feel like if you are not super familiar with the comics, at the same time, you don't have to have seen any of the DC movies to enjoy this, to appreciate it. It does kind of stand on its own.
Right,
which is nice. There was something. It's getting to the point with Marvel where it's like if you haven't seen a lot of it, like you're lost, you're hopelessly lost, and so it's nice to be able to just kind of walk into this.
Credit where it's due. Yes, that is a feature. As far as our other characters go, I want to take a mention for some of our human characters. Andy mentioned when his plot opening at the start that a couple of characters, a mother and son, kind of use this artifact to bring Black Adam to the present time, and they're kind of throughout the rest of the film as well. There's a bit of a social commentary around like the liberation of Kahndaq. I keep wanting to say Kandar because that's the name of one of the words of the thing in Evil Dead. Anyway, the people of Kahndaq are to be socially liberated from this gang, these mercenaries for hire, intergangs they're called, which I hope is a comic reference because it's terrible. Whatever writer came up with that, like it's got to be. Yeah, like it's a terrible name for like a mercenary group, intergang, but whatever. Like there's this element of like social liberation, people hoping the Black Adam will be this like hero for them, and so that sets up a kind of a unique spot for Black Adam to be, that some people praise him as a god and others see him as a villain. I think that's clever. But man, the humans in this movie are just like paint on the wall. You don't care at all. Okay. Like there's so one note. The mom is this kind of revolutionary character who's incredibly thin, and like many people in this position, like really puts the entire plot at risk because of her own selfish means. And the son is like, at first I thought he was like Marty McFly because he skateboards a lot, but that's really his only thing. He skateboards a lot. And he likes other DC heroes, which is, great for him. His room is just wall to wall, Batman, Flash, Wonder Woman, Superman. And there's like 4 scenes in that room, by the way. And every time Dwayne Johnson is in a room surrounded by DC stuff in a DC movie, I kept thinking of like Space Jam 2, when like LeBron is like talking to all the Warner Brothers properties, and he's like, "Wow, look at the people from the monsters from Clockwork Orange next to Danny DeVito's Penguin." Like just too much licensing, like too on the nose.
Yeah,
But
it was like,
I'm
did you
really
know you were
adult.
in a DC
I'm sure kids
movie?
liked it.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
right.
it's
Did,
very
did you know? Do you
it's
know
very
Superman
meta.
is in this universe, but he's not going to show. He's not here, and Wonder Woman's here, but not really. Like just
Yeah,
yeah.
it's very meta in that way, and it's like, yeah, his room is littered with Batman, Superman, Wonder Man, Wonder Woman, like
One of
memorabilia.
my
But, I mean, to the point of there are literal comic books that's like, Rebirth, New 52. These were like runs that they of the last
yes,
10 years or so.
which is good fan service to comic fans, and I think that's somewhere where DC leans heavy. Like Marvel does not go out of their way to like get offer fan service to comic fans. DC does, and I think that's smart. But like the first time it happens in the movie, a big laugh out of me. The kid's like skateboarding, of course he's skateboarding, and he like trips. And he like his backpack falls off and it slides open, and like 3 comics slide out perfectly into frame. It's so funny. Just like shoom, and they go right in the middle of the frame. And it's like what Flash, Superman, yeah, like New 52 or something. It's so obvious. Like we're a comic book company.
We're a comic book movie. Did you know
We
that?
comic book stuff. Yeah. Did you know? Like
Have you
just
heard of
really.
Batman? Like,
Yeah, I know that stuff's got to be in there, but like, boy,
yeah, yeah.
they
It's
really
like
go for it.
a bunch of middle-aged execs were like, what do kids do? They skateboard. Yeah, let's have a lot of
Yeah,
skateboarding in the film. They like
yeah,
comic books.
they
Um,
skateboard and read comic books. Yeah,
yeah, and they're kind of the people that move the plot along. There's a weird thing about the liberation of the city, um, which is again out of nowhere. There's way too much in this movie. There's like
yeah,
several movies going on, and needed to get whittled down to a more simple script.
right. And like, not all of it's wasted. Like I said, the Justice Society I think is good. At least Doctor Fate is a really cool character. Hawkman I'd say secondary, and then your other 2 were like fine. You don't think much of them, but they're the young up and comers. Like they're at least pretty interesting. But like Black Adam's story is kind of like there's not a 90-minute movie around Black Adam here. Like there isn't. And it's stretched
Right.
out by like the introduction of other elements that like help kind of pad it out and fill it out. And that's not necessarily strong for like a character who's supposed to be a real big deal. Like he ends up feeling like a small part of a larger something. And maybe that's where you want Black Adam to be. Maybe you want him to be kind of positioned as, you know, a piece in the universe, but like I think they had hoped, at least presentation wise, that he was going to be like the biggest piece in the universe.
Yeah, it's just really not super interesting. I was thinking there's like most villains don't really have a lot of backstory. They're just the bad guy. It's like most action movies are like that. The bad guy is just the bad guy because we need someone to be the bad guy. We don't need a whole long story, and most of them don't have interesting backstories, and that's kind of how this is. And in the comics, Black Adam is just he's the anti-hero, and he's got this small backstory, but he doesn't have a legion of comics worth of stories. That's part of the reason this character is so flat, is like he's flat in the comics as well.
Yeah. This movie's got, and we should wrap it up because I realize I'm running out of things to complain about. But there's one other thing. This movie does suffer from some like problems in pacing. The first 2 acts are pretty good. Like they get going. I mean, you get the introduction of Black Adam, then you get the Justice Society swooping in, and you get to deal with them a little bit. But like, I genuinely thought this movie might roll on credits at the end of Act 2. It kind of reached a point where I was like, okay, I think we're done here. Like I think we've kind of reached our consensus, and all of our characters seem to have decided what's what. And then it like has to whip out this like surprise Act 3 with a villain that kind of comes out of nowhere. I mean, I know they're in there, but like you don't really think too much about them. And that's a bummer. That does not help the end of this movie. The last 45 minutes are like, oh, I didn't think this was going this direction.
Right. See, I actually enjoyed the kind of like the last half of Act 3. Like I feel like the climax of the movie is pretty strong. There's a lot of cool sequences and things, and we get to see our characters work, our heroes working together, using all kind of combining all their powers. That's the cool stuff. That's what people are coming for. It
Yes.
just takes so long to get there.
Yeah.
So long, and you don't really care about most of the, again, you're not really super interested in Black Adam or the kind of secret villain that comes out in Act 3. Again, the Justice Society, most, like, I wish they had their own movies. Like, they're super interesting.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, me too. Like you could stand to give them 2 hours and they could probably make it work. I'm sure it'd be that globetrotting problem I talked about, but like, I think there's a way to limit that. They clearly did it here. Ultimately, like I think Black Adam was supposed to present as kind of bigger and bolder and stronger than he actually does in the movie. And like that's a problem. Against humans, Black Adam will crush you, right? But like as soon as there's a couple soups on screen, he's in trouble. Like he's my man is on the ropes. And I know in the beginning they got to make him look like, oh, he's got to overcome, he's got to get stronger and become bigger and bolder than he's ever been before, right? That's what you do. That's the hero's turn, the hero's journey. They take a dive in Act 2, they come back stronger in Act 3. But like, man, Dwayne Johnson sold this in pressers like he is as big as Superman, and it's like, I don't think so, dude. Like, I don't know. I did not walk away from this movie thinking he was like the new Dr. Manhattan or anything. I'm not even sure he's as tough as Dr. Fate. So,
Yeah,
yeah. Any other thoughts on this one before recommendations, Andy?
I think I'm ready.
Andy, would you recommend Black Adam?
I would recommend it to hardcore comic book fans. If you're into superhero movies, you see them all, you'll enjoy it. It's not a great movie. Again, it's like the Fast and the Furious. Like, that's, if you enjoy those movies, you can enjoy them for the spectacle and the action that they are. They're not big on plot or characters, but they're a lot of fun. And that's kind of how this is. It's a fun time. It's actually pretty funny. There's a lot of good jokes in there. They don't all land. Most of them do though. But it's definitely for kind of the hardcore comic book superhero person. If that is not you, probably skip it or save it for streaming.
Yeah, same. Like if you're a comic book fan, you want to keep up with what DC's doing, of course you should go see Black Adam. You'll probably have a fine time. If you're like average consumer and you're starting to get tired of superhero movies, like save it. You're not missing anything huge here. Any relevant news about the larger universe will hit the internet if it hasn't already. So there aren't too many giant changes or anything. It's fine. It's fine. Dwayne Johnson really wanted this to be like the biggest deal ever, and I think the issue is in its writing. It just doesn't quite get over the mark. It tries to just spin too many plates, and ultimately that hurts the larger feature. And that's Black Adam. Oh, and one more thing. While I'm thinking about it, I was talking with Andy about this for the movie. Don't go see this movie in IMAX. It wasn't shot in IMAX. I went and saw it in IMAX because it was the next convenient show, and that was just what happened. And I ended up at an IMAX theater, and it's like cropped. It's not, it's not any kind of big fancy IMAX show. Maybe D box would be a good time, like your seat moves and stuff, but don't waste the money on IMAX.
I sat behind the D box seat, so I got that D box light. Got a little bit of shake, a little bit of rumble.
Poor man's D box. Great. Well, regarding DC, we should talk about our last segment, which is also abbreviated DC. Haha. How appropriate. Andy, you want to introduce this for us?
It's time for the death of cinema. So some big news from DC just today. So after Black Adam marked the end of Walter Hamada's time with DC Films. He was the head of DC Films from 2018 to present, and there's been a long search for who would fill that seat. And just today, not a few hours ago, it was announced that James Gunn would take over along with producer Peter Safran as the head of DC Studios. Not DC Film, that they're going to be combining the film, animation, TV under one umbrella, call it DC Studios, and it's going to be they're going to be co-CEOs, kind of creatives of DC Films moving forward, and this is huge. James Gunn, of course, worked with Marvel on Guardians of the Galaxy 1, 2, and 3. Has worked on the Suicide Squad, the Peacemaker TV show. He's done a lot with both comic book properties. Been really successful, and this is huge news. Zach, what are your thoughts on this?
Genuinely like startled when this came up. I couldn't believe it looking at it. James Gunn is a infamously creative director who has produced stuff that is exciting and different for Disney. This has been Guardians of the Galaxy 1 and 2. You may remember James Gunn was actually briefly in some hot water for some old tweets that got led to him getting pulled from Guardians 3. He signed a deal with DC to make the Suicide Squad. That spun off into Peacemaker because that was successful enough for it to become its own thing, where he jumped into HBO television with 12 episodes. And following that deal, Disney decided, you know what? Actually, we do want you back. We want you to come make Guardians 3. He signed a deal with that. Now he will be heading the creative arm, at least, of this co CEO position over DC Studios. It's bananas. Like, this is film, TV, and animation. This is combining everything. And as far as it goes, James Gunn will be the creative director of all of it. Peter Safran will be kind of the money arm, kind of the management arm. There's some work, business and production side, and there's some mention here of his past work. I don't think he's done anything particularly exciting.
So a couple of the things that he's worked on, he was producer of the $1 billion grossing Aquaman, as well as its upcoming sequel, Suicide Squad, Peacemaker, Shazam, and also the Conjuring franchise, which is a $2 billion
franchise. Good God!
All right, so he's made some money for DC, and that's the other thing is like we are getting creatives, but we are also Warner Brothers is looking to make money. They're not doing passion projects right now, and so they've kind of struck a balance there.
I tell you, it's a smart thing to split this job because I don't know who in Hollywood might want it. I think being the new head of DC Films is like got to be one of the most challenging jobs to jump into because Warner Discovery CEO David Zaslav has made it very clear he wants Kevin Feige. He wants exactly what Marvel's doing. He's like, I just want to chase that. Kevin Feige's doing great over for Marvel. I wish I could clone him and have a second one, and that's who I'd have running things. Walter Hamada, previous DC president, film president, is out. I do want to talk about him briefly, but we'll get to that. And so having like two people step into this role feels smart because then you're not just going to hang everything on one person. You've got two different minds approaching it, one that's money and one that's more creatively oriented. I can't tell you how James Gunn is going to run this studio, though. I really could not say where they're headed because James Gunn does things differently, right? Like he approaches things from a new voice, new space. That's what I want for Star Wars. That's why I like that Damon Lindelof announcement. But this is also the guy who seemed to be cool with like naming his Suicide Squad feature the Suicide Squad, which like greatly hurt it. This is the guy who ran with Peacemaker, which is successful, but a really odd property to run in a direction with on HBO. He's got some weird takes, I guess what I'm saying. And often they're hot, but they're weird. And like, I don't know what that means for DC. I mean, I know Peter Safran's got the money side covered. I appreciate that. But like, he also has some unique outlooks. Like he's attached to Aquaman 1 and 2, right? Shazam, The Flash. Like these are new properties for DC. These are different properties for DC. And I think that's good. But at the same time, like, I don't know if this satisfies that Kevin Feige requirement, right? Like this is not exactly a return to the Justice League, or maybe it is. I don't know yet, but
yeah, and I know that they've talked a lot about Kevin Feige and the MCU, but I think they're really looking to go in a slightly different direction. They have multiple universes going on. There's like kind of the main DC film universe, then there's the Matt Reeves Batman, which is separate from the Joker, Todd Phillips Joker film. So they are split in ways which I think is actually good because Marvel's kind of getting to where, I mean, it's just one giant timeline and
everything's watered down, right?
It's going to kind of collapse at some point. You're going to have to kind of start over. So it's almost smarter to have different universes going on. What I'm interested is to see where do we go from here? What projects are going to get announced? What's going to get greenlit? What's going to get the axe? Because there are some, there's some more DC projects still in the works. There's supposed to be a Green Lantern show on HBO Max. There are sequels to, the Joker film, to the Batman, things like that. So it'll be interesting to see where we go from here.
For sure. One thing I've got confidence in for Gunn is his ability to get behind smaller characters, and I think that's huge, right? Like they specifically mentioned Harley Quinn in this announcement, specifically Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Harley Quinn, and the rest of the DC stable of characters. But I think that's good. There's been some question about where her character's headed now that Lady Gaga is picking up the role in Joker 2, but that is its own thing. Like Andy said, that's its own kind of universe and its own kind of angle. Matt Reeves is doing stuff, and they're greenlighting shows for HBO that they're going to be creating that are also in the universe of Robert Pattinson's The Batman. Meanwhile, James Gunn has Peacemaker, which was its own thing. Like, I think the guy is not afraid to elevate smaller properties. And I think that is a genuinely great asset. That's something Marvel is only really trying to get into in the last few years. And they're not doing that good of a job. Yeah, on paper, it looks good, but like, there's got to be diminishing returns on some of these characters they've been leading. Meanwhile, James Gunn is leaning into it, and James Gunn is running forward with it, and I think that's a good thing. I hope Peter Safran feels the same way. Like, I hope they're going to want to continue to elevate some of these like lesser known characters and reinvent the characters who have been worked. I mean, there's been some recent news regarding other characters in the DC universe, specifically around Black Adam, that we won't talk about, but there seems to be direction coming forward, and what that might be like weird zigzaggy, but ultimately I think it's positive.
Yeah, I mean, he's an incredible creative person. If you haven't seen the Suicide Squad or the Peacemaker show, it's just he's out there, and that's good. I mean, that's what we want. We want creative films, even in this space. That's part of the reason that Black Adam is so. I was calling it Bland Adam over the weekend. Dwayne Johnson is a producer on the film, so I think he was calling some of the shots, and I think he was trying to mold it like a Fast and Furious film. So that's why it feels so much like that, and that's not what you're going to get with someone like James Gunn. And it'll be, but he's the one making the decision, so it'll be interesting, like I said, to see what projects they take on, what actors and directors they bring into the fold to make more films, and yeah, ultimately how they move forward with the universe.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. This is unique coming from the studio that canned Batgirl, right? Like a film that was basically done. But also, like, not that weird coming from the studio that greenlit Zack Snyder's Justice League cut. Like, I don't know what to expect from DC, but like, considering where their competition is, where Marvel is at now, I'm a bit more interested in what DC is doing, just because it's different, right? It's punk, it's weird, and like, that's good in its own way. It's punk. It's not really punk, but um, ultimately, I think this is a good thing for DC. I'm very surprised. I can't really speak towards their TV and animation division. Like I said, I know they're doing some things in HBO, which are good stuff because HBO is Warner Brothers. Animation, I don't really know what to tell you. I don't watch a lot of DC animated.
It's fine,
but yeah, like ultimately, like I think this is a good thing. I hope this leads to better days for DC because they've been struggling. Regarding Walter Hamada, any thoughts, Andy? Because I got some hot takes.
I mean, he did better than whoever they I don't know if it was Zack Snyder. I don't know who was in charge when they started with Zack Snyder, but he definitely pushed things in a better direction. We got again Zack Snyder Justice League. We got the Joker film. We got Shazam, Wonder Woman 2. So he made some good decisions. Some things didn't hit quite as well, like Birds of Prey or even Black Adam. Like I mean, Warner Brothers is looking to make $1 billion off every property DC that they make. They don't want to make small. So he did okay. He did better than what had come before.
Yeah. I think Hamada was able to like kind of pivot in the wake of like popular properties not doing well, right? Justice League not doing outstanding. I think he was able to like elevate projects that were smaller and bring people like James Gunn into the fold, which like clearly has begun to exhibit like a direction for the rest of the franchise, at least for the next 4 years. So, I think that's a good thing. Like, I think Hamada produced stuff like Shazam, yeah, like stuff like Black Adam in that case, but also, the Suicide Squad and elevated Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn and gave her multiple swings at that, which were all good. I think making something like Peacemaker was exciting and greenlighting like a new Batman reboot with Robert Pattinson was good stuff. Like ultimately, like I think in 4 years, this guy made some pretty good moves. And it's a bummer that the new Discovery Warner CEO didn't feel that way. But clearly, like the spirit of what he was doing, the spirit of like taking the road less traveled and like producing things that were maybe a little bit odd. Clearly, that's still alive and well, and I think it's a good thing. So,
yeah,
that's DC. That's Walter Hamada. Any other thoughts on this, Andy?
That's it for me.
Well, that's about it for our show. Like I said, only one movie this week. We want to take some time to talk about Black Adam, make sure we really dug in deep. I think we've maybe dug a little too deep. But if you stuck around with us, Andy, what can people expect to watch next week or hear about next week on the show?
So we're going to be watching All Quiet on the Western Front. This is going to be out on Netflix starting this Friday. This is not a remake. There was a movie by the same name made in the 30s, almost 100 years ago, that's based on a book about the First World War. It's supposed to be very gritty and brutal depiction of trench warfare and all that. That comes out this Friday. That is a film from Germany. It's in German, and it's their entry for Best International Picture. We're also going to be watching Decision to Leave, which is Park Chan-wook's latest mystery drama romance thing, and that's going to be in theaters. Park Chan-wook, of course, is known best for Old Boy and more recently things like The Handmaiden and Stoker, and I'm super excited to see that. That's a Korean film, and that's what we're going to be doing this weekend. Also, Tar is out this week if you want to catch that. That's the biopic of conductor Lydia Tarr starring Cate Blanchett, which is apparently an incredible piece of acting.
Yes, I need to see Tar. I'm not quite as excited about it as I should be.
It's 3 hours long.
Yeah, like I said, the trailers remind me of like the trailers from Moria, which Andy and I saw with Tilda Swinton and Cate Blanchett and Tilda Swinton. They're not the same; those are two different people, but like uniquely similar vibes of like really moody, really tonal, but like don't really give you an idea of what the plot is. And I'm like, dude, three hours of watching like a lanky, very thin white woman like struggle with like high society snobbery problems. Like just I can only do it so much, and like a little bit. That's like, yeah. Let me go watch a movie about a woman who has absolutely no want for money, has no real problems, struggle with like intellectual or creative spaces. Like I don't know. I need to go see it. I shouldn't be so jaded. It might be totally different than what I'm thinking. I've not been totally drawn in by the marketing, but I am excited to watch All Quiet on the Western Front. That movie looks surprisingly brutal. There's a couple trailers out. It looks like something else. And Decision to Leave. How long is Decision to Leave, Andy? It's over 2 hours, isn't it?
2 hours, 20 minutes, I think. It's a long one.
That's not bad.
Good.
Well, hey, you know what? For foreign cinema, I'll go for it. I was laughing at a tweet earlier from a YouTuber I like, film essayist Patrick H. Willems, who said he's been working on film essay for films from the 80s. He's like, best thing about films from the 80s is like, God, all of them are 90 minutes, like 90, 95, 89 minutes. Like it feels like lately everything we watch is like 2+ easy. Like, man, if they can get you to the theater, you're going to stick around. So it's fine. I'm excited to watch both. But that's our show for the week. And if you enjoyed our show for the week, you should follow us at Offscript Film Review on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook and YouTube, on iTunes, where you get all your usual podcasts, or the audio version, Spotify, Google Play, iHeartMedia. You can follow us in all those places. You can follow us on Facebook, where we do our live stream every Tuesday afternoon. You can follow us on YouTube, where we post the live stream after. I guess you'd subscribe on YouTube, wouldn't you? And you'd subscribe on all those podcast platforms as well, or as many as you like to support the show. You actually have no idea how much subscribing actually helps podcasts like us. It's kind of a huge deal on the back end. It makes a really big difference. So if you have the means, hit that subscribe button to get new episodes of Offscript delivered straight to your phone every single week. You can also write us correspondence in any of the comment sections on any of those sites you like, or email us and mail at offscriptfilmreview.com. Let us know what you thought of Black Adam. Let us know what you think of Tar coming up, right? Or any movie we're about to watch. And also let me know if I should watch Smile. Like, really? I'm not... God, I write that one off, and I don't know. I keep thinking maybe it's worth something. But you can follow us. You can subscribe. I don't know. Is there anything else? Am I missing something, Andy?
I think we're good.
I think we're good. From all of us at Off Script, the home of bold cinema, I'm Zach Lewis.
And I'm Dr. Draper.
Thanks.